Hello and welcome to Campside Chats. I'm Sierra Keat,
Hi, I'm Sarah Donka.
and this is a podcast by female solo travelers for female solo travelers. Sarah and I have traveled and, in her case, are currently traveling across the United States on our own and seeing all the beautiful sights we can.
That's right. We are exploring and we want to share all of our insights with you, our funny stories, our recommendations, and just give you a little bit of a taste about what solo female traveling is all about. Try and debunk some of the myths or some things that folks have in their minds about it. Since it's such a positive and transformative process. So we're excited to share it with you.
Exactly. So, since this is our first episode, we're going to start with why. Why did we start our adventures? What led us to venture on into, in our case, places we'd never been before? So,
Yeah,
Sarah, what
that's
got you
exactly right.
started?
Oh, wow. It was a long time in the coming. I definitely took a few months to think about it. And I've always been an avid traveler. For my job, I usually travel around the world. And I really miss that sense of adventure, that sense of excitement. And I guess I'll just speak for myself, but during COVID, adventure was very, very lacking. And of course, we needed to stay inside and stay home to keep everyone safe. Um, and so I started thinking and reading a few different books that inspired me. And one was Wild by Cheryl Strayed. And to me, she's like the godmother of female solo travelers. Um, I highly recommend the book to anyone who is interested in doing that. And she basically hiked the Pacific Crest Trails in the 80s alone when women didn't really hike the trail um, because, of course, different social pressures and factors, not that there wasn't an interest. And so she talked really honestly about what led her to the trail and what she experienced when she was on it. And having gone through some personal challenges and struggles recently, I really connected with her book and her why. We talk about the why and what brings us to the path. And so, I just decided to do that and really go into nature and kind of come back to our original home. If you think about nature as our original home, that was really important for me to go back to just kind of sit with myself and be with myself. So that was really my why and something that was so important to me.
That's great. And I still really want to read that book. I need to get started on that. It sounds like it was just so inspirational to you. And I can already, based on the conversations I've had with you, see that this road trip has had such a positive impact on you and your outlook on life.
I really feel that, Sierra. And I'm still, as Sierra said, I'm still traveling. So I'm socially distanced traveling around the country and staying most nights in my car and car camping in national park and state park campsites. And it has been really transformative. So I really appreciate you saying that, and I feel it so much. So, Sierra, what is your why? Why did you decide to say, hey, I'm going to do this?
So it really was a spur of the moment decision, sort of. Back in December, my housemate Evelyn graduated with her master's from Georgetown University. So she was moving out She's from Nigeria originally. So she did not have any family in the country, but she has a family friend of hers in Georgia, in Atlanta. So I drove her and all of her stuff down to Atlanta and got to spend some time with her and her family friend there, which was an absolute blast. But while I was traveling down, Evelyn asked me how many states I had been to. And while I was in Atlanta, I had this dawning epiphany that if I just went even one state over, I would be somewhere I had never been before. And so I was like, so more background context. I had lost my job about a month ago at that point. So I didn't have anywhere I needed to be in person until February, essentially. As long as I was back by a certain date to quarantine for 2 weeks and get a COVID test, then there was nothing stopping me. And I was also going through some personal struggles in my life and really needed to do some introspective soul searching. And so I, like you, Sarah, like you had mentioned earlier, you purchased your first car for this trip. I purchased my first car a few months ago as well. And so I just decided that now was the time to do something like this. Also, I had previously been a student athlete in college and had been competing in various sports most of my life. So I never really got the time to travel on my own. So I was like, if not now, then when? So that's what inspired me to go. And while I was traveling from Atlanta to Charleston, where I have relatives, I basically just kind of told my relatives, hey, I'm thinking of like doing this road trip. And they were very supportive of it, which I was so thrilled and grateful for, because I feel like that's not always the case. But they really helped me get some gear and supplies. And also, shout out to my sister who got me this amazing REI order for Christmas. I was able to pick up my tent, a lamp that charged my phone, as well as a gas cooker. So yeah, and the tent is another story. I'll save that for later in the podcast.
You're going to have to share that story because that is truly one of my favorites.
Yes. Things can and do go unexpectedly on the road. So moving on from our why now, Sarah, what unexpected things have you run into on the road?
Oh my gosh. Just so many unexpected things. I think there's been everything from I won't call them issues, I'll call them surprises, dealing with my vehicle in different states, to some of the amazing wildlife I've seen. You know, I was hiking a trail in Apalachicola, Florida, which is a beautiful national forest. And I looked up on the trail and an otter just sprinted across the trail in front of me, which was incredible to see. I'd never seen an otter in such a interesting dry kind of environment with the trail there. I'd only seen it in them in water. So, but I would say definitely on the road, you know, I was driving from, I think it was Texas to Louisiana. I went to New Orleans because my mom was born in Baton Rouge and I wanted to trace some of our family history. And I was driving down the road, everything was going great. And all of a sudden I hear a huge crack and an 18-wheeler truck had flipped a huge stone into my windshield and totally cracked it. So that was just an example of everything will happen on the trail, and such great things and some kind of annoying things. I was able to get it fixed really easily and quickly, and my car insurance is great, which is so helpful. And shout out to Subaru Baton Rouge. Thank you so much for saving me. But you know, I'm always continuously shocked by how incredible people are on the road. I always find in campgrounds, people take the time to say hi to me, connect with me, share their story, hear about my story, and just kind of look out for each other. Let people know what's going on. Hey, did you hear a rainstorm is coming in? Or, hey, check out this trail or go down this path. And I've been so appreciative. So I would just say people are amazing. They always amaze me. So
they really are.
Yeah. What about you?
Oh gosh. So similar to you, I also had a rock flicked up. Luckily it hit the front hood, so like it left a little dent, but it's not noticeable. So thankfully I did not run into a cracked windshield or anything. But you actually gave me a great suggestion in Tucson, and that's where I got to meet you for dinner, which was awesome. It's always great to be able to see like a few people along the way, even if it is socially distanced and safe. But I needed to get my tires rotated, and so you were able to recommend a great shop for that. And so I was able to get that done, and my grandparents had recommended another one. So when I was in Durango, which is in Colorado, I was able to get my oil changed and things like that. So car maintenance is so important on a road trip. And since you're putting more miles on your car, it's something that you have to be super diligent about, because without your car, the trip doesn't really happen.
Exactly.
So speaking of unexpected things that happen along the way. So back to my sister's REI shipment for me. I picked it up in Chattanooga, Tennessee on Christmas Eve. And it was supposed to include 3 items: a tent, a gas stove cooker with a little cook pot, and then a lamp. And so I got the lamp and the gas cooker, but they left the tent out of the order. So I didn't check the order, which I really should have, opened the bag. Because if I had gotten to a national park and realized this would have been a little bit problematic. But I arrived at a hotel in Memphis, Tennessee, and because my sister had suggested practicing setting up your tent, I look in the bag. There's no tent. So this is on Christmas Day by myself in Memphis, Tennessee. The next morning, I call REI and let them know what happened. They were able to determine that, yes, they had forgotten to include the tent. And unfortunately, their Memphis branch did not have this tent. So I decided to go to Austin, Texas to pick up my tent. Because that was the next closest one along the way, because it was either that or go back to Chattanooga. And I was like, well, that's going to kind of throw off my timeline, and I've already been there. So
yeah. And that's what you have to do, is just keep going forward. And you were able to get on the phone and work it out with REI. I think one of the funny things is sometimes people don't know how to work with you when you're on the road constantly. I currently don't have a permanent address. So when people need to ship me things, or when I need to do administrative processes, people have to just be a little more patient with me.
Yeah,
I have to go to the FedEx or the post office and get what I need. But there are just, so many instances where, like you did, you have to think on your feet. And you have to say, okay, how am I going to get this tent? Because I need the tent for this destination. And I'm glad that you were able to get it and pick it up. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
look at the bag and there's no tent.
yeah. This is why you always check your shipments when you're in the store, not after the fact.
I love that. I think it's so funny. In the book Wild, which I will reference many times over in this podcast, Cheryl talks about how amazing REI was. And she says, this is not an advertisement for REI, but they will really work with you and get you your equipment. And I think that's evidenced by, you being able to pick it up in Austin. They've helped me with so many different things. And sometimes I find that just talking to their staff can be so helpful because there are other people. Like I was talking to a woman in San Antonio, Texas, and she does these big solo backpacking expeditions, which is another level. Like I solo travel in my car, but she does like day on like 3-day trips in the backcountry. And she doesn't even bring a tent. So it was so cool to hear from her and listen to kind of her strength and what she experienced on the road and while she's hiking. And so I love just having those conversations with people along the road.
They really are so meaningful.
Yeah, they really are. I love that.
Like,
what about, oh, sorry, I had a question for you. I'm just curious if, our theme is kind of like the why. Why did we decide to set out? And I know a big question that I had when I decided to go on this route was, what if I have doubts? What if things don't work out? What if I'm sitting in a campsite somewhere and I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? Were there any moments that you felt doubt or uncertainty, and how did you get past that?
I absolutely did 100%, especially when I was leaving a campground to a new one, because that's when it gets really challenging and because you don't know where you're going to go.
Yeah.
You know the destination, but you don't know the area. You don't know necessarily what's around it. And there's this huge, like, fear of uncertainty and fear of the unknown. Like, because we're very social creatures, we want to be around people and be around what's familiar. And when we don't have that, we feel almost lost. So the best way I can put it is, it reminds me of this quote, and I forget who said it. A ship in the harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are built for.
Oh,
So
I love that.
basically, yeah, it's so great. And basically, it's up to us to be our own vessels to venture out into this great blue ocean, even though there are storms, there's unknown creatures out there, essentially, and we don't know what we're going to run into. But I also had these thoughts so often along the way, like, I could just turn around and go back home and I would be safe. I would have a warm bed to sleep in. But ultimately, if I had turned around at any point, I wouldn't have seen all these beautiful places and I wouldn't have had this eye-opening experience. And we wouldn't be having this podcast right now, for sure.
We truly would not. And I'm so glad that you decided to do it. For anyone who's listening, who's thinking, can I do it? Will it be scary? Will it be uncertain? Yes, it will be at certain points. But
the adventure of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like Sierra said, we were destined for greatness and adventure. And if you can do it safely and, in a way that makes sense for you, you should go out and do it because it can change your life.
Absolutely. And Sarah, you had told me earlier about this book, Wild, and how the author ran into people around her questioning, why are you doing this? Like, why are you throwing away your life? Like,
Yep.
and I know I ran into some of these questions, not so much like, why are you throwing away your life, but what are you doing? Why are you doing
Yeah.
this? Why now?
Oh, it's so true. And I think she came up against those questions and she just said, I'm not running away from my life. I'm running into my life. And that was something that resonated with me because sometimes the right decision is the hard decision. In my case, I left a very stable job that was in my career field that I'd worked hard at that I was passionate about. But I knew within myself, I had to see what was out there. I had to get back to nature. Um, and so that was really my why. When I described it to people, especially leaving my work, leaving my comfortable little apartment in DC, and going out into the big, scary world, people had a few different reactions. Some reactions were very fear-based, which is understandable, which is, will you be safe? You know, do you have pepper spray? Don't trust anyone,
Yeah.
which is good advice, really. And I do make sure that I'm alert at all times and I am more guarded to just keep myself safe. But there were also some people that really got it. And they said, you know, I'm really happy for you. And they're following my travels and really supporting me through this journey, especially when it gets hard, when it's uncertain. I went through some of the storms in the South recently. So I was in Louisiana and Mississippi when that big storm hit that impacted Texas with hundreds of thousands of people without water and electricity. And the same thing happened in Mississippi and Louisiana. So I've seen some challenging situations in my trip. And I would just say those original people that said, hey, I see why you're doing this. And I see that you're trying to step into your life and not running away from your life. And I'm going to be here for you and you can do this. And that was really cool.
Exactly. And I think that's so great. And I also would just like to say that you had told me you were setting out on this journey, and that planted the seed in my mind. So thank you so much for inspiring me as well. And not only that, but inspiring this podcast to happen essentially, because, you know, if you and I hadn't decided to venture into the unknown, then we wouldn't be here now and we wouldn't be having this conversation. But I think it's just so incredible and amazing that you showed so much courage leaving behind a very comfortable lifestyle essentially to allow yourself to feel regrounded and reconnect with yourself essentially. I'm very proud of you for being able to do that.
Thank you so much, Sierra. And the inspiration goes both ways. Sierra is my crew coach and has coached me through some of my hardest pieces and has been such an inspiration and strength. And I think what I want to share with folks is that, you know, if you are finding yourself at a time in your life where you need a pause, you need some rest, and you need to go within, like Sierra said, you know, you need some inward reflection. You deserve to take it. You can take the time. We don't necessarily have to earn the right to rest. We can sometimes take a pause, and the world will be there when we come back. And so I think that's been something I've had to reiterate to myself and justify to myself, as to, yeah, I deserve to take this rest. And, it's going to be okay, essentially.
Exactly. And going off your point, for me, it was also a matter of everything happens for a reason. And as devastating as losing my job was, if I hadn't, I never would have been able to take this journey or this adventure. And I'm so grateful that I was able to do that and that I had the tools and the support necessary to do that as well. It really is such a fortunate experience and a huge privilege to be able to travel. And the fact that we're able to share these stories with each other and now with all of you, our listeners, it really is just incredible.
I totally agree. It's kind of like the adage. I don't know if it's an old adage, but a coworker of mine shared it with me, and it's leap and the net will appear. It's this trust in it's all going to be okay. And like you said, things do happen for a reason. And while it does seem like you had a great support network and all the things fell into place, you also built that net, and you are your own resilience. So I think that it's no miracle or no coincidence that you were able to be so successful in your travels. And I think that's really cool.
Thank you. I love that, though. Leap and the net will appear.
Yeah.
That's a good takeaway.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you've ever felt uncertain in your life, if something really horrible has happened or unexpected and you've gotten through it, it just shows that there'll always be something to catch you. And what if we lived our lives from courage and excitement as opposed to fear and uncertainty? Especially as women, we got to get out there. So
especially as women, what I've found is like the first thing they tell you from like day one is don't go anywhere by yourself or like something horrible is going to happen. Like there's a reason like women go to bathrooms together. Like even in high school, like that was such a huge thing. And like ultimately we don't need to do that. We're perfectly capable of going out on our own and having these grand adventures and taking care of ourselves and taking risks.
We totally are. It's, there definitely is a reason, like you said, that there are all those things, and people are so good-natured in wanting to protect us and keep us safe. But once we actually realize that the world is really a kind, loving place.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there are some dark edges and uncertainty around this light, but we are our own saviors, and we are our own. we're really our own heroes. So, with that, we want to just leave you with the encouragement. If you're thinking about traveling solo, do it. Sierra and I will be with you along the way, and we're going to share everything from how we plan to what to do with uncertainty, to some national parks and forests you can check out near you. So with that, we just like to thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next episode.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.